In the intensive care unit ICU of Houston Memorial Hospital, the fluorescent lights reflected off the pale face of K9. Officer Jack Morgan, his loyal German shepherd Zeus, pressed his nose against the observation window eyes, sharp and alert. Something was wrong. Zeus tracked the movements of the doctor inside the room. A low growl, rumbling from deep in his throat, catching the attention of Officer Alex Diaz. Zeus had never acted this way around any of the other medical staff. But when the man posing as a doctor began adjusting Jack's medication, Zeus's reaction became stronger. Zeus remembered the chaos at the airport, gunshots, the sharp chemicals scent in the air, and the sight of Jack collapsing after being shot. That same scent was now clinging to the man inside the room, triggering every instinct to protect his partner. Once again, the dog didn't fully understand the situation, but his instincts were crystal clear. This man carried the same dangerous scent as the suspects they had encountered at the airport in Zeus's mind. One thing was certain: Jack needed protection at all costs. 12 hours earlier, Houston International Airport was as busy as ever, with thousands of travelers moving through the crowded terminals. Officer Jack Morgan and Zeus were on their routine patrol near the security checkpoints, so bright lights from the electronic signs reflected off the POPO floors. But Zeus remained focused, his ears twitching slightly as he scanned the area. The German shepherd was always on high alert, never letting his guard down during duty. Suddenly, Zeus came to an abrupt stop. His ears perked up, and his amber eyes fixed intently on the direction of the international terminal. Slowly, he sniffed the air, detecting something unusual. After a moment, he glanced up at Jack. "What is it?" "Zeus, you catch something?" Jack asked in a low voice, his hand instinctively moving to the radio clipped to his vest. Zeus didn't give his usual signal, but continued sniffing the air. Jack's instincts kicked in. Whatever Zeus had picked up, it was serious. Without hesitation, Jack followed Zeus's lead. They moved through the terminal, heading toward Checkpoint 3. With every step, the strange chemical scent became stronger. As they approached the area, Jack spotted a group of men pushing large pieces of luggage through the security lanes. Zeus let out a low growl, his gaze locked on the group. Jack noticed the change in his partner's body language immediately. "Excuse me, gentlemen, I need to inspect your luggage," Jack said firmly, keeping his voice calm. The group froze for a second, exchanging nervous glances. Then, without warning, one of the men bolted. "Stop, police," Jack shouted, drawing his weapon. The terminal erupted in chaos as the fleeing man's accomplice pulled out a gun and fired. Screams echoed through the terminal as passengers scrambled for cover. Zeus took off in a blur of motion, chasing the man who had run. Meanwhile, Jack ducked behind a pillar, narrowly avoiding a bullet that grazed his shoulder. The pain shot through his arm, but he kept moving, firing back at the gunman while calling for backup. Over the radio on the other side of the terminal, Zeus had already closed the distance between himself and the fleeing suspect with a powerful leap. The dog knocked the man to the ground, clamping his jaws around the suspect's arm before he could reach for a weapon. Jack, despite his injury, managed to handcuff the man just as airport security reinforcements arrived. Breathing heavily, Jack could feel the sharp pain intensifying in his shoulder. He glanced at Zeus, who stood protectively by his side, his eyes full of concern. "We got them, Zeus, it's over," Jack murmured before collapsing from blood loss. Zeus didn't move an inch. He stayed by Jack's side as paramedics loaded him into the ambulance. Yet in the back of the dog's mind, the chemical scent still lingered, a silent warning that this was far from over in the ICU of Houston Memorial Hospital. Tension was mounting. Jack Morgan lay unconscious on the hospital bed, surrounded by a network of machines beeping in steady rhythms. Zeus sat by the observation window, his eyes locked on a doctor, entering the room to check Jack's medications. The dog's muscles tensed, and a low growl rumbled from deep in his throat. That scent. It was the same chemical odor Zeus had detected at the airport. His instincts screamed that danger was imminent, and he knew he had to protect Jack. Officer Alex Diaz, Jack's close friend and partner, noticed the strange behavior and approached the dog easy. "Zeus, it's just a doctor," Alex whispered, trying to calm him down. But Zeus remained on high alert ears, standing rigid and body coiled like a spring. At that moment, Dr. Rebecca Lee, the ICU physician on duty, approached. She had worked with therapy dogs before and immediately recognized that this wasn't ordinary anxiety or fear. Is he only reacting like this to this particular doctor? Rebecca asked. Alex, yeah. It just started today. Alex replied he was about to say more when the shrill alarm of Jack's heart monitor cut him off. Both of them turned their attention to the window inside the room. The doctor was frantically adjusting Jack's IV line as his vital signs began to plummet. Zeus suddenly lunged forward, his leash straining under the force. Alex had to brace himself, struggling to hold the powerful dog back. Zeus barked sharply, the sound echoing through the sterile hospital corridor like a warning siren. Rebecca's eyes narrowed. "Are you sure this guy is a doctor?" she asked, her tone filled with concern. Alex hesitated for a moment. That he was assigned to Jack last night. When they brought him in, I haven't seen him before. That he admitted that's strange. Rebecca muttered, "I've worked in this ICU for over 3 years, and I've never seen him around before." They could say more. Zeus let out another deep, threatening growl as the man inside the room glanced toward the observation window for a split second. The doctor's eyes met Zeus's, and Rebecca caught something chilling in that gaze, a flicker of fear quickly followed by hatred. The man turned abruptly and strode toward the service elevator at the end of the hallway. "Stop him," Rebecca shouted. But Zeus was already ahead of the command years of training, and countless hours of pursuit drills kicked in as the dog broke free from his leash. His claws clattered against the polished floor as he sprinted down the hall, closing the distance with lightning speed. The chase had begun. Zeus charged down the hospital corridor, his claws scraping against the polished floor with each step. The sound echoed through the hallways as the German shepherd pushed himself to full speed. Ahead, the man posing as a doctor sprinted toward the service elevator, frantically jabbing the button to close the doors. Alex and Rebecca followed as fast as they could, but they couldn't keep up with Zeus. "Zeus, get him," Alex shouted. Though the dog needed no further prompting, Zeus understood his mission perfectly. The elevator doors began to slide shut, just as Zeus surged forward. With one final burst of speed, he leapt through the narrowing gap, barely squeezing inside before the door sealed completely inside the elevator. The imposter panicked and pulled a small knife from his coat pocket. But Zeus didn't hesitate. With a deep, ferocious growl, he launched himself at the man, sinking his jaws into the suspect's arm. The man let out a blood-curdling scream as he struggled to free himself. But Zeus's grip was unrelenting. Blood began to drip from the wound. "Get off me," the man yelled, thrashing around in desperation. but Zeus tightened his hold, keeping the suspect off balance. The man stumbled and fell to the floor of the elevator. At that moment, the doors opened again, revealing Alex and 2 hospital security guards rushing toward them. Zeus, release. Alex commanded. Zeus obeyed, immediately releasing the suspect, but remaining in a defensive stance, growling low in his throat. The security guards moved quickly, pinning the man to the wall and cuffing his hands behind his back. Rebecca entered the elevator, her sharp gaze falling on a hospital ID badge that had slipped out of the man's pocket. James Weston Transport Staff from another hospital. She read aloud, her voice filled with suspicion. Take him into custody, and we need to run a talk screen on Jack's blood right now, Rebecca ordered. Firmly, Zeus stood next to Alex, his intense eyes never leaving the suspect. The dog knew instinctively that this wasn't over. This was only the beginning of something far more dangerous, with the suspect detained and taken away. Alex, Rebecca, and Zeus returned to Jack's ICU room. Rebecca quickly examined the medical equipment, her eyes narrowing as she noticed discrepancies in Jack's medication records. The dosages are wrong, she muttered. Scanning the data, someone deliberately altered his medication to harm him. Zeus moved toward a small refrigerator in the corner of the room where certain temperature-sensitive medications were stored. The dog sat down in front of the unit, signaling a target. Alex and Rebecca exchanged glances. There's something in there, Alex said quietly, carefully opening the lower compartment inside. They found a small package taped to the compressor. When Rebecca removed it, she discovered several unmarked vials, each bearing a strange symbol. This isn't standard medication, she said. Inspecting the vials, Alex's expression darkened as a memory surfaced. I've seen that symbol before on one of the suspects at the airport, he recalled. They followed Jack here. Rebecca concluded this isn't just drug smuggling. They're transporting something far more dangerous. Alex immediately contacted the investigation team, while Rebecca called the lab to have the substance analyzed. As they waited, memories of the airport incident replayed vividly in Alex's mind. The gunfight, the chemical odor that Zeus had detected, everything pointed to a much larger conspiracy. They're using commercial flights to smuggle this stuff, Alex said aloud. Rebecca nodded, her face grave. This might be some kind of bioweapon. We need to alert the federal authorities right away. Zeus stood alert beside Alex, his keen eyes scanning the room. Years of experience working with Jack had taught the dog to recognize the signs of imminent danger. He knew this fight was far from over. What's on your mind? Zeus, Alex asked, half out of habit. The dog let out a low growl, his eyes tense as he kept watch on his surroundings. We have to move fast, Rebecca said firmly. If they were bold enough to infiltrate the hospital, they won't stop here. Night had fallen over Houston Memorial Hospital, but Zeus remained on high alert. The hallway lights dimmed as the night shift staff took over. Jack lay unconscious on the hospital bed, his breathing steadier, now that his medication had been corrected. Without warning, the ICU lights flickered and went out. A low hum echoed through the building as the main power shut off. Zeus sprang to his feet, his ears erect, eyes fixed on the door. Alex reacted just as quickly, his hand resting on the grip of his firearm. What the hell's going on? Alex demanded, glancing at Rebecca. The backup system should have kicked in by now, Rebecca said, as anxiously at that moment, the electromagnetic lock securing the ICU area clicked open. All of the security doors disengaged, and the nurses' station computers went dark. Disabling the surveillance cameras, darkness enveloped the ward. Zeus growled as the door to Jack's room slowly creaked open. A familiar voice echoed through the dim light. "Well, well, isn't this cozy?" Rick Harrison, Jack's police chief, stepped into the room, his badge glinting faintly. His expression was colder than Alex had ever seen Harrison. "What the hell are you doing here?" Alex demanded, tightening his grip on his weapon. "You're asking the wrong question," Ha replied, his voice laced with menace. "I should be asking why you've stuck your nose where it doesn't belong." Two men in tactical gear appeared behind Harrison, securing the hallway. Zeus moved forward a step, his growl deepening, but he held his ground. "How long have you been working for them?" Rebecca asked coldly, her sharp gaze piercing through Harrison. Harrison chuckled bitterly. "How long since before you even had a clue what was really going on? Don't kid yourselves. This is bigger than anything you've uncovered so far. You're transporting bioweapons through the airport, aren't you?" Rebecca pressed. "That's why you needed control of medical facilities." Harrison didn't deny it. Instead, he drew his gun and said, "We don't have to make this difficult, but if you stand in our way..." He never finished the sentence. Zeus launched himself at Harrison's gun arm, snarling fiercely. Rebecca yanked the curtain, shut, plunging the room into total darkness. A gunshot rang out, shattering the ICCU window. In the pitch-black chaos erupted. Zeus, relying on his instincts and advanced training, maneuvered, strategically attacking from unseen angles. Alex grappled with one of Harrison's men, while Rebecca triggered the emergency lockdown system, sealing the entire ICU ward. Zeus moved like a shadow, striking swiftly, and effectively he cornered Harrison, clamping down on his arm and forcing him to drop his backup. "Weapon freeze." Alex shouted, aiming his gun at the remaining assailants. Harrison and his men were finally subdued as federal agents and backup officers stormed in. You stood beside Jack, his eyes locked on the defeated Harrison being led away. The ambush had been thwarted, but Rebecca knew this was far from over. Whoever had orchestrated this attack would undoubtedly try again. Harrison and his men were escorted out of the hospital under heavy federal guard. Although the attack had been neutralized, both Rebecca and Alex knew this was only the surface of a much deeper and more dangerous conspiracy. Alex stood near the doorway to the ICU, tension etched across his face. "They won't give up that easily," he said, casting a glance at Jack, who remained unconscious on the hospital bed. "We have enough evidence to press charges," Rebecca replied, flipping through the files and documents the investigation team had just secured. "But this fight is far from over." Zeus sat beside Jack, his ears twitching at every small sound in the area. The loyal dog understood that the danger had not fully passed. The FBI and other federal agencies are involved now. Alex added, "We've got key leads from this operation." Rebecca nodded. "But they've got more accompli other airports, other smuggling routes. We'll have to be more vigilant than ever." Zeus lifted his head at the sound of Alex's voice, as if he understood the gravity of their conversation. Rebecca knelt beside the dog, gently stroking his ears. "He's done more than anyone could have expected," she said softly, meeting Alex's gaze. "Not only did he protect Jack, but he helped us prevent a disaster outside the hospital. Patrol cars and federal agents. Vehicles began to leave, taking the captured criminals with them. Yet an unshakable sense of looming danger lingered in the air. "They'll be back," Alex murmured. "But next time we'll be ready." Zeus lay down beside Jack's bed, his breathing steady, but his eyes still open. Watching the door tonight had brought a temporary peace, but the dog knew there were more challenges ahead. A few hours later, security at Houston Memorial's ICU was fully restored. FBI agents and federal officers collected evidence and interrogated. Harrison investigators confirmed that this incident was only part of a much larger criminal network. Zeus remained by Jack's side as Dr. Rebecca checked his condition. "He's stabilizing. If it weren't for everyone's quick response, we might have lost him," she said to Alex. "Thank you, Zeus," Alex murmured gently, patting the dog's head. Zeus wagged his tail slightly, but kept his vigilant eyes scanning the room outside. Jack's room agents relayed information about other accomplices tied to Harrison 1. Agents stepped in and reported, "We've uncovered leads at multiple major airports. This network has been operating on a national scale. We've only scratched the surface," Alex said grimly. Rebecca nodded. "The people behind this won't stop, but now we have enough evidence to force them out of the shadows." Jack let out a faint groan as he began to stir. His eyes slowly opened, immediately focusing on Zeus by his bedside. "Hey, buddy, are we done?" And yet he whispered, "Helly, not even close." Alex replied, "But you can rest now." Zeus took care of the hardest part. Zeus lifted his head at the mention of his name, glancing at Jack with a protective, loyal gaze. The battle wasn't over, but they had secured an important victory together. They would face whatever came next. 2 weeks later, Jack Morgan had fully recovered and attended a federal hearing. He and FBI agents presented evidence on the bioweapon smuggling network spanning multiple continents. Jack explained how Zeus detected the danger at the airport, preventing a potential catastrophe. Meanwhile, a new national K9 security program was launched. Rebecca Lee led the initiative training. Specialized K9 teams for deployment in major hospitals and airports. Jack and Zoo served as advisors, shaping advanced security measures that evening. Jack and Zeus relaxed on the hospital rooftop. Jack smiled gently, patting Zeus's head. "Sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones who never stop believing in what they sense." He said softly. In the distance, the city lights of Houston sparkled as a plane took off from the international airport. Jack stood and looked down at his loyal partner. "Come on, partner, time to get back to work." Zeus rose to his feet, ready for the next mission.